Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down the Week 16 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. Got the 49ers and the Titans playing this Thursday night. This is, probably not going to be the most exciting game. These are two, kind of slow-paced, run-first teams. The total in this game is only at 44, so I don't think we should really expect, much of a shootout here. But again, we got a showdown slate with a lot of money up top. Draftkings running a millionaire maker once again for this Thursday night game. So we're going to talk through this showdown slate like we always do. We're going to go top to bottom, hit on all the playable options, all the guys I do have interest in. And then towards the end of the video, we'll kind of talk through roster construction, how I'm looking to build out my lineups, who I like to play at captain, and all that good stuff. But before we get started with the breakdown, please, guys, hit the like button down below. I do always appreciate the likes. If you're new to the channel here, make sure you do click that subscribe button as well. And if you have not yet, go check out the sponsor of the video, Prize Picks. Go sign up for Prize Picks. Use code Noah when you sign up for Prize Picks, and they will match your first deposit. They will give you a free bet up to $100. You can take a look at what Prize Picks has to offer. They are basically a player prop based DFS site, so you're basically just picking the over or the under on players' projections. They do already have a good amount of stuff posted for Thursday night's games. As you can see, they have passing yards for the quarterbacks, rushing yards, receiving yards, receptions, touchdowns. You can bet on whether a guy scores a touchdown or not. They do also have fantasy point projections. Now, right now, they don't have any fantasy point projections posted yet, but I'm sure they'll get those posted probably sometime, early Thursday morning. I am recording this video on Wednesday afternoon. But you can take a look at the Prize Picks board for this game. They also offer a lot of other sports, NBA, college basketball, college football. You can mix and match sports. So check them out, sign up, and use code NOAH. That way you will get that 100% match on your first deposit. And if you guys do want some of my favorite picks each day for Prize Picks, along with the entries that I am playing myself, I give those out on Patreon. You can check out the Patreon link down below in the description as well if that is something that does interest you. But let's take a look at this Thursday night game. Start off at the top of the player pool. So Deebo Samuel, our most expensive option, and George Kittle right behind him. Don't have the quarterbacks as the most expensive options, which normally QBs are going to be the top price players, but not on this slate. We got Deebo and Kittle as our top two price players, and I think obviously both these guys look like really good options. Now, Deebo Samuel, he's actually not been targeted a ton lately. They've been using him a ton in the running game, though. Eli Mitchell is out once again for this game on Thursday night, so I think we will see Deebo Samuel, continue to get a lot of work through the ground. I mean, you look at his game log; he's got 5 straight games with at least 1 rushing touchdown. That Week 12 game against Minnesota, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he's basically like their backup running back at this point. Like whenever Jeff Wilson needs to come out, for maybe a breather or something, they'll bring Deebo Samuel in there, or they'll line him up in the backfield. They'll give him carries. I mean, he's gotten at least 5 carries in 5 straight games. He's still going to get targeted some. His targets have definitely gone down though with this, with this introduction of him being used in the running game. They haven't been throwing the ball to him as much, which is a little odd. At the early parts of the year, early stages of the year, he was getting targeted a ton, 8, 9, 10 targets a game. Hasn't been the case lately, but the rushing work has kind of made up for that. He still offers a lot of upside. He's scoring touchdowns at a really high rate. He's got 5 straight games with a TD. I think Deebo Samuel is one of the better pay-up options. I think George Kittle is a guy we can definitely look to as well. He continues to get good volume. You see the last few weeks, 12, 15 targets, 6 targets last week against Atlanta. George Kittle does still offer a lot of upside. This 49ers team, they are kind of a run-first team. But we see, in games where Jimmy Garoppolo is forced to throw a little bit more, we can get massive, massive games from George Kittle. Now, George Kittle does kind of offer still somewhat of a low floor. There will be times when he just doesn't get a ton of opportunity. Maybe the 49ers just run the ball the entire game. They've had games like that. The Jacksonville game, I know they were running the ball a ton that game. Against Minnesota, like Kittle only got 2 targets that week. But when they do throw the ball a lot, we know Kittle is going to get all the opportunity. We know he's going to get a ton of volume. I prefer Deebo Samuel over Kittle, but I think George Kittle is a really, really strong pay-up option too. We know he offers a big ceiling, if the volume is there. And then you got the quarterbacks, Jimmy G, Ryan Tannehill. Neither one of these guys are super exciting to play. Just so far this year, you look at the game log for Jimmy G, he doesn't really offer a ton of upside. Again, this is a run-first 49ers team. They're going to try and control the clock, just run the ball as much as possible. In game scripts where they do get behind, you can sometimes catch ceiling games from Jimmy G. He did have 20 DK points against Cincinnati, 23 DK points against Arizona, and again, they were trailing a lot. Had 30 DK points against the Bears. Most weeks, though, Jimmy G is only going to throw the ball like 25 times, and you just got to hope that he's really efficient, gets a couple touchdowns. I think he's still a high floor play. Quarterbacks normally always give you pretty high floors. Even a bad game from Jimmy G, he's going to give you like 10 or 12 DraftKings points. in cash games, quarterbacks are usually staples. So if you're playing cash on showdown slates, which I really wouldn't do, but if you're playing cash, I mean, I think you probably want to roster both quarterbacks. I don't think either quarterbacks are must on this slate though. And normally I want to try and roster at least one of the two quarterbacks on this slate. I think you could probably get away with not playing either quarterback, just because Ryan Tannehill as well has not shown much of a ceiling this year. He is a guy that can definitely go out there and give you just like 14 DK points and not be great. The Titans might get back A.J. Brown for this game, which I think will help Tannehill a little bit. But I still don't think like Tannehill's a must by any means. I think the quarterbacks are solid, but neither one are like priorities for me. I think I'd be fine playing some lineups on this slate without either quarterback in them. But then some other options in the mid-range, like A.J. Brown, 8,800. He is expected to return from injury reserve. We don't have any update yet on whether he is going to play or not. But kind of the signs are kind of pointing to him playing. He participated in practice this week. He should be good to go come Thursday night. And if A.J. Brown does play, I'd assume we see him step right back into his every down wide receiver role. When he's been healthy this year, he has been targeted a ton. We've seen Julio Jones be a really big disappointment this year. I thought with Julio on the team now, like maybe that would take away from A.J. Brown, but that really hasn't been the case. When Brown's been in there, he's been getting a ton of targets. Julio, once again, is banged up. He did, I think he practiced Wednesday, and he should be good to go for Thursday's game. But, man, like Julio just has not looked great this year. He really hasn't demanded a ton of volume either. I think A.J. Brown is the clear wide receiver one in this Titans offense. I think he's going to be targeted a good amount. In the mid-range, I think he's one of the better options if you do want to go to him at 8,800. I definitely prefer him over guys like Ayuk and Foreman and Julio. Ayuk at 8K still probably gets a decent amount of targets, maybe 5, 6, 7 targets. We saw him do really well in those few games that Debo was out. Since Debo has come back, his role, his targets, I guess you should say, like have gone down a little bit, but he's still been playing on a good amount of snaps, I do believe. Like I think he's still been basically an every down receiver. Last week, Brandon Ayuk played on 98% of the snaps. I mean, he's played on 90+% of the snaps in 6 straight games now. So he's been an every down receiver. The only issue with these 49ers pass catchers is that, outside of Kittle, outside of Debo, you can just see like really bad games from these guys just because they don't throw the ball that much. We could see Ayuk get like 4 targets and score like 5 Draftkings points. But I think in a scenario where maybe the 49ers are forced to throw more, Brandon Ayuk does offer somewhat of a ceiling, especially since he's going to be on the field for 90+% of the snaps. I do feel better about A.J. Brown, though, priced similarly to him. Deontay Foreman at 7,600, I think is a solid option. He's been used pretty heavily through the run game this year, or as of late with Derrick Henry out. They haven't been using him a ton in the passing game. They still have Jeremy McNichols. They still have Dontrell Hilliard, I believe is his name as well. I haven't really been on these Titan running backs at all this year. Even when Henry got injured, like I never really ever played these guys on the main slate. But now on a showdown slate, we kind of have to consider these Titans running backs. And I think Foreman is the guy that I feel the best about. You just look at his touches. I mean, 20 touches against New England, 15 touches against Jacksonville, 24 touches last week against Pittsburgh. He's been getting all the opportunity. He's been the number one running back for sure right now for Tennessee. I think I don't know if he's going to run for over 100 yards again. I do worry about, I worry about his efficiency, I guess. He's going to have to probably get into the end zone to put up a score that you have to have. I don't think it's likely that he rushes for over 100 yards again. And if he doesn't do that, he's not going to get a ton of receptions. He's going to probably have to get into the end zone, but they've been using him a lot. He's been getting a lot of volume. The volume's at least going to be there, which I think makes him solid at 7,600. But I would probably rather play A.J. Brown, if I could find the salary to get up to A.J. Brown. Julio, again, Julio's just been so freaking bad this year, man. I've had some interest in Julio lately on the main slates, and it has not gone well. In his first game back against Jacksonville, I was expecting Julio to do pretty well that week, and he only had 4 catches for 33 yards. He's had literally one good game this season, and that was week 2 against Seattle. I mean, you look at his game log, he's got less than 10 Draftkings points in every single game this season except one. I think Julio will be low-owned because he's been so bad this year. I think Julio still has a ceiling, I guess. I think he's still a good receiver. But, man, I don't have any confidence in Julio right now. I think if you do play Julio, you're just hoping he pops off and he's low-owned. And I assume he will be low-owned even on the showdown slate. So if you want to go there in tournaments, it's fine. But to say I have confidence in Julio, I mean, that's just not the case right now. He's just not a guy that I think you really feel great about putting in your lineup. You just hope that, maybe this is the week that he finally has a good game and, nobody's going to play him. That's really the only thing I have to say about Julio. But some of these other values, so when we get below 6K, there's definitely a clear standout value play at 5,200, and that's Jeff Wilson. Since we already got word that Eli Mitchell is going to be out again, Jeff Wilson should once again be the lead back for San Francisco. Last week against Atlanta, he got 23 touches. He had a really good game, scored 22 DK points. He's going to get similar volume to Deontay Foreman, and he's $2,000, $2,500 cheaper, $2,400 cheaper. So I think if I was going to play a running back in this game, I would definitely just go to Jeff Wilson. I mean, last week, Jeff Wilson played on 88% of the snaps. The week before that against Cincy, when Mitchell was out, he didn't play as much, 59% of the snaps, but he still saw 13 touches. He looked really good though, last week against Atlanta. Even on a short week, I expect another heavy workload for Jeff Wilson. He is by far one of the best value plays, or he probably is the best value play on this slate. And I think, in the captain spot, you could definitely roster Jeff Wilson because he's so cheap and he's going to project so well at his salary that he is someone you could definitely use at captain. I think his captain ownership will be pretty high, but I do like Jeff Wilson a lot for value at 5,200. These other Tennessee pass catchers, especially now that A.J. Brown is expected back, it's going to be really hard to have much confidence in Westbrook-Ikhine or Chester Rogers. Westbrook-Ikhine is probably going to be like the wide receiver 3. Whenever Julio and A.J. Brown have both been healthy and have both played, which hasn't been a ton of games this year, but when they've both been in there, like Westbrook-Ikhine, his snaps have not been great. They're just going to kind of use him like as a slot receiver. I mean, usually in the games that Julio and A.J. both play, you're going to see Westbrook-Ikhine play like 35-40% of the snaps, probably get a few targets. You're kind of overpaying for him at this point. I think he's viable, but I don't feel great about Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't really feel great about any of these Titans pass catchers, just because they're going to mix and match guys. Now that A.J. Brown's back, he's going to demand a lot of targets, which is going to take away from all these other receivers. So don't feel great about them. Juwan Jennings at 5K, I don't really like that much either. I mean, last week he saw 6 targets, saw 5 targets the week before that. I want to say that his playing time has been pretty decent lately. Last week, Juwan Jennings played, let's see. I didn't even spell his name right. It's J-U-A or J-A-U. I put J-U-A. It's J-A-U. So Juwan Jennings last week, he played 44% of the snaps. The week before that, 66%. He's going to be on the field enough to where I think he's viable at 5K, but he's a kind of another guy you feel like you're overpaying for right now. By far, Jeff Wilson's the best value play on this slate, and then I think the kickers probably look solid. If you want to go to one of the 2 kickers, I'm good with that. Once you get below the kickers, you have the defenses. I think maybe the defenses could be fine on this slate. In order for a defense to be in the winning lineup, you're either going to need a really low-scoring game, or you're going to need a defensive touchdown, a lot of turnovers. Jimmy G will definitely take sacks. He'll turn the ball over. I don't mind playing the defenses on this slate, but I think I'd be more likely to play the kickers over the defenses. Defenses still have a really low floor, just because any week a defense could score 2 points. The range of outcomes on defense is just so wide. It's really you're just kind of throwing darts there and just hope you get a game where a defense scores a touchdown or something. I usually just don't play the defense and just hope that doesn't happen. Below the defenses though, there really isn't much down here to feel great about. You've got the other Titans running backs that I guess you could go to, like Dontrell Hilliard. He saw 9 targets last week. He did get 9 carries last week. He did get 6 targets. They've been using him a decent amount in the passing game. At 2,800, I think he's a viable punt play. Just hoping that you get maybe 5, 6, 7 carries and then maybe 3, 4 targets. If he scores 7 or 8 DraftKings points, he could be pretty solid. At his price point, if I'm going to punt with anyone down here, I think he's my favorite play. You have McNichols as well, who's mainly just kind of the pass-catching back, but he did see 6 carries and 3 targets last week. They're going to involve him some as well. Right now, Deontay Foreman is still kind of the lead back, but you will see McNichols involved a little bit. You'll see Hilliard involved a little bit. I think between the two, you're kind of just throwing darts with both of them, but I think Hilliard probably gets a few more touches than McNichols. Maybe in a scenario where Tennessee gets behind and they're throwing a lot, maybe you would get more opportunity for McNichols, given they like to use him in passing situations. But I think Hilliard at 2,800 is a viable punt play. The Titans tight ends, Swaim and Ferkser, I mean, you're basically just hoping for a touchdown with these guys. Neither one are going to get many targets, maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 targets for each guy. They're touchdown or bust. If they don't catch a touchdown, they're probably going to finish with 3 or 4 DraftKings points. I'd be fine just not playing either tight end. I think I'd rather play one of the running backs. And then Kyle Juszczyk, I mean, at $1,800, he's super cheap, but he's another guy that's just kind of touchdown or bust. He's very, very low floor, pretty likely to score single-digit DK points. If he gets into the end zone, maybe he could be good at his salary, but I would be more likely to play McNichols or Hilliard, who probably do see more touches than Juszczyk. And then JaMychal Hasty, I mean, they just really haven't even been using him that much. Last week he only saw 2 touches. Jeff Wilson played over 85% of the snaps, I think 88% of the snaps last week. they're just not involving Hasty that much, and especially with Deebo Samuel, with them involving Deebo in the running game, like there's just not a lot of opportunity right there, or right now available for Hasty. So even at $1,200, I don't think he's someone I really feel great about. I think that's really it for value plays. I think if you're going for punt options down here, you're probably looking to one of the Tennessee backup running backs, whether it's Hilliard or McNichols. I think Hilliard is viable. I think he's the one I feel better about, but McNichols is playable too. I think the kickers are fine values. I think Jeff Wilson is by far the best value play on the slate. And that's really it. And then we kind of talked about, the pay-up options, the guys that I like at the top. But yeah, before we end the video, we'll kind of talk through just kind of roster construction real quick. On this slate, I think there's a good amount of ways you could go at captain. I think Deebo, George Kittle both make sense as captain options. I think A.J. Brown in the mid-range is a guy that offers upside and is someone you could use at captain. And if you want to go cheap, I think Jeff Wilson makes a lot of sense in the captain spot. He's going to project really well at his salary. I think his captain ownership will be pretty high. But I definitely like Jeff Wilson at captain. You could play him at captain, and that will allow you a lot of salary to work with. You'll get you could pay up for like a lot of guys at the top, so you could get probably Deebo in there. If you wanted to play Kittle too, you could do that, or you could play one of the quarterbacks. Since we have Jeff Wilson and Deebo, we'll just go with Tannehill on the other side, kind of get like a run back option. If I'm playing Jeff Wilson at captain, and I'm assuming he has a big game, that probably means that he's scoring at least 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns, which obviously means that Garoppolo is not going to be throwing those touchdowns. I would say that if Jeff Wilson winds up being the winning captain, that probably means that Garoppolo's not having a great game. So I think I'd be more likely to play Tannehill than Garoppolo in my Jeff Wilson captain lineups. But like once you plug in Tannehill, you still got 68, 66 left per player, so we could get like one of Tannehill's receivers, whether we want to go with A.J. Brown or Julio. As I said earlier, I feel way better about A.J. Brown right now, assuming he plays. I like A.J. Brown quite a bit. And then, value-wise, we could maybe plug in a cheap punt option. If you wanted to play like Hilliard or McNichols, one of those two, you could plug them in. That would leave you enough to play like Ayuk, which you could do. Or you could play, I guess you could play Ayuk, leave some salary on the table. Or you could play like Foreman and then maybe upgrade off of Hilliard. I don't know if you'd want to play Hilliard and Foreman in the same lineup. I could maybe see that working out, but normally I don't like playing 2 running backs from the same team. But if you want to take out Hilliard, we could fit in one of the kickers. We'd have enough salary to get Bullock in there. So that's a build that I kind of like for the Showdown slate. I think going cheap at captain with Jeff Wilson is something you can definitely do. I think if you want to pay up for captain, Deebo Samuel, I like a lot in the captain spot. I think George Kittle's captain viable. I think A.J. Brown in the mid-range, assuming he plays, is a pretty solid captain play too. I don't think I'd be playing the quarterbacks at captain. I normally don't play quarterbacks at captain, especially not these guys that probably, in order for them to be the winning captains, you would probably need them to throw like 3 or 4 touchdowns. And if one of those 2 quarterbacks throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, it's pretty likely that George Kittle is going to be the captain that you want, because George Kittle, like if Jimmy G throws 3 touchdowns, that probably means Kittle's got at least 1 or 2. You probably would rather have Kittle in that scenario. Same with Tannehill. If Tannehill throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, it probably means that A.J. Brown's having a massive game, and then in that scenario, I'd rather have A.J. Brown at captain. But like Kittle, Samuel, Brown, those are the guys I like at captain. If you're going cheap, I think Jeff Wilson's a really good captain play. And that's it, man. It's not the best Showdown slate, I'll be honest. Not the best game in general. Low total game. It's probably going to be like a really kind of sloppy run first type game. But we got a Showdown slate. We got a lot of money up top, so I did want to break down the slate for you guys and kind of give my thoughts. But I hope you did enjoy the video. Again, I appreciate you guys watching. If you did enjoy, please do hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button as well if you have not yet. And go check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. We talked about PrizePicks earlier. If you want to check them out, sign up and use code NOAH, and they will match your first deposit. They will give you a free bet up to $100. And you can take a look at what PrizePicks has to offer. You can take a look at their board for this Thursday night game, see what props they have available right now. As we get closer to kickoff on Thursday, they will have a lot more stuff posted. They'll have fantasy point projections posted. They'll probably have even more props available that you can take. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks, and you can win up to 10 extra money on PrizePicks. So go sign up and use code NOAH when you do, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. But good luck on this Showdown slate, guys. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you did enjoy, and we will see you in the next one.